You've been ignoring the texts again. 3 people reached out this week, and you watched their names light up your screen, felt that familiar tightness in your chest, and let the messages disappear into the void. It's not that you hate them. It's not even that you're busy. It's something darker than that, something you can't quite explain to anyone because the moment you try, the words dissolve in your throat like smoke. The truth is, somewhere along the way, you learn that people hurt less when they're kept at a distance, and now distance is the only place where you feel safe. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes with avoiding everyone, and it doesn't feel the way people think it does. It's not dramatic. You're not crying in dark rooms or writing sad poetry about how no one understands you. It's quieter than that. It's the sound of your phone not ringing. It's the relief you feel when plans get canceled mixed with the ache of knowing you're disappearing from people's lives like morning fog. It's waking up and realizing you haven't had a real conversation in weeks. And the strangest part is that some buried part of you prefers it this way. But here's what nobody tells you about becoming someone who avoids everyone. It didn't start with you deciding to be alone. It started years ago, in moments you've probably forgotten or convinced yourself didn't matter. Maybe it was the friend who shared your secret with everyone at school, turning your trust into lunchtime entertainment. Maybe it was the parent who was supposed to protect you, but instead made you feel like your emotions were too much, too loud, too inconvenient. Maybe it was the person you loved who looked you in the eyes and promised forever, then left you standing in the wreckage of that lie, picking up pieces of yourself you didn't even know could break. Your brain watched all of this happen. It took notes. It learned that people are unpredictable, that closeness leads to pain, that vulnerability is just another word for giving someone the weapon they'll eventually use against you. And so your brain, trying to protect you in the only way it knows how, built walls. Not the kind you can see. The kind that live inside your chest and your thoughts. The kind that make you cancel plans at the last minute, that make you go silent in group chats, that make you feel exhausted at the mere thought of explaining yourself to another human being. This is what psychologists stumble around trying to name with their clinical terms, but what they're really describing is simpler and sadder than any diagnosis. You learned that isolation hurts less than rejection. You learned that if you never let anyone close, they can never leave. You learned that the safest relationship is the one that never begins. Watch what happens inside you when someone tries to get close now. There's that initial warmth, that flicker of hope that maybe this time will be different. And then, like clockwork, the fear arrives. It whispers in a voice that sounds like protection but feels like prison. They'll leave eventually. They always do. Why wait for the pain? Why not just avoid it altogether? And so you do. You stop responding. You make excuses. You fade away before they can fade first. And you tell yourself this is strength. This is control. This is you finally learning your lesson. But underneath that control is a child who still wants to be held. Underneath the walls is a heart that still hopes someone will care enough to climb them. Underneath the avoidance is a desperate, aching need to be seen and chosen and loved. But that need has become so entangled with fear that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins anymore. The cruelest part is that avoiding everyone actually works, at least in the short term. When you're alone, no one can disappoint you. No one can lie to you. No one can make you feel small or unwanted or too much or not enough. You control everything in your carefully constructed solitude. But what you control so tightly eventually controls you. The safety becomes a cage. The walls that were supposed to protect you start to suffocate you. And one day you wake up and realize that in protecting yourself from pain, you've also locked out every possibility of joy, connection, and being truly known by another person. Here's the dark psychology that most people miss. Avoiding everyone isn't about hating people. It's about terror. It's about carrying wounds that never healed properly and doing whatever it takes to make sure they never open again. Every unreturned call, every declined invitation, every relationship you let drift into nothing, these aren't signs of your coldness. They're signs of how much you've been hurt, how deeply you learned not to trust, how thoroughly someone or something in your past convinced you that you're safer alone. And maybe the most painful truth of all is that the people you're avoiding probably have no idea what's really happening. They think you're busy. They think you don't care. They think you've moved on or found better friends or simply lost interest. They don't see the war happening inside you every time their name appears on your screen. They don't know that you think about them. That part of you wants to reach back, that you rehearse conversations in your head that never make it past your lips. They just see the silence, and eventually, they stop trying. And when they stop trying, it confirms exactly what your wounded brain predicted. People leave. See, you were right to build the walls. You were right to keep them out. Except you weren't right. You were scared. And there's a difference. The shadow self, the parts of you that you hide even from yourself, knows this. It knows that beneath all the avoidance and all the walls, you're not protecting yourself from other people. You're protecting yourself from the terrifying possibility that if you let someone in and they still leave, it will prove what you've secretly feared all along, that you're not enough. That there's something fundamentally unlovable about you. That you're too broken, too damaged, too much work, too complicated for anyone to stay to. So you avoid everyone first. You reject before you can be rejected. You disappear before they can leave. And in doing so, you create the exact outcome you feared, but at least this time you're the one in control of it. At least this time, you saw it coming. But here's what your wounded brain doesn't understand. Healing isn't about never getting hurt again. It's about learning that you can survive the hurt, that you can be broken and still be worthy, that you can let someone see the messy, complicated truth of who you are and discover that love doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. The people you're avoiding aren't perfect either. They carry their own wounds, their own fears, their own histories of pain. Maybe some of them would hurt you. Maybe some of them would leave. But maybe, just maybe, some of them would stay. Some of them would see your walls and understand they're not rejection but protection. Some of them would be patient enough to wait, gentle enough to prove that not everyone operates like the people who taught you to hide, that you're not broken for avoiding everyone. You're not weak or damaged or wrong. You're a person who learned to survive in the only way that made sense at the time, and that survival mechanism served you when you needed it most. But surviving and living are not the same thing. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the fear and all the walls, you know this. The texts are still there, waiting. The people are still there, wondering. And you're still here, standing at the edge of a choice you make every single day. To stay hidden where it's safe but lonely, or to take one small, terrifying step toward connection, knowing it might hurt, but also knowing that hurt isn't the only thing that exists on the other side of these walls. Sometimes, on the other side, there's understanding. There's belonging. There's someone who sees you, really sees you, and doesn't run away that you've been avoiding everyone because you're afraid. And that's okay. Fear doesn't make you weak. But maybe, just maybe, you don't have to let it make you alone forever either.